Hi, welcome to the Steve Alex podcast again. Today I'm with my friend Cal.
I'm Cal.
And I'm going to talk about Alexandre Dumas.
Was he the one who wrote the Three Musketeers?
No, he was his son.
Okay, tell me something about him.
Okay, Alexandre Dumas was the son of a nobleman, a French nobleman, a marquis, and a native of Haiti by the name of Marie Dumas. Okay, he was a mulatto, half white, half black, and he was a man of prodigious strength, tremendous strength. He stood 6'2", which back in the times of France, back in those days, he was a giant.
He was a big guy.
He was so strong, they say he could bite through a helmet, steel helmet.
Wow.
He could also, right underneath the tree branch with his horse, okay?
Okay.
Grab the top of the tree branch, he chinned the top of the tree branch, taking the horse with him.
Wow.
Tremendous. Then, the old muskets that they used to have.
No musket,
those heavy things.
Right.
He could fit all of them on his fingers, hold them out at arm's length, full extension. And now he was also able to put two men on his knee. Okay, he'd stand on one foot. He could hop around the room carrying the two men with him. That's how strong he was.
Wow, he was a big guy.
He was a big guy. No one to trifle with.
Wow.
But they say his feet were so small that he could wear his wife's shoes.
Wow. Okay.
But he was also a terrific swordsman.
Right.
In fact, they say there was only one swordsman in all of France who could beat him.
Okay.
His name was the Chevalier of St. George, who, by the way, also happened to be black.
Okay.
I'll get into that at a later date. But, okay. Now, when his mother died, his father remarried, and Alexander was greatly upset by this and resented this. So he told his father that he was leaving home, going out on his own. And his father told him, if you leave this household, you leave your title with it. So he says, okay. And he dropped the name Marquis, and he kept his mother's maiden name, Dumas.
Okay, Dumas.
He enlisted in the army when he was 19 years old as a private. As a private. This guy was so good that in 22 months he was already a general.
In 22 months.
22 months.
Amazing.
He was
smart.
He
very
was
smart.
He made general.
How did he stack up against Napoleon?
Well, he was a general already at 35 when he was 35, when Napoleon was still a major. Now he made his name for himself at the Battle of Mount Cenis. At that time, the French were fighting the Austrians,
Right.
and they had this one hill, a tremendous sized hill. It was more like a cliff, and it was almost an impregnable position that they had.
Right.
They had it all covered except for one section of it, which was a straight cliff, like about 100 feet straight up and down.
Straight up.
Right. I figured nobody could scale it, so they didn't have to protect it.
Right.
What Alexandre Dumas did, he scaled it. He had his men climb up the hill, and he said to them, now look, he said, if you fall off the hill and you scream, you're still going to be dead, then there's no sense.
Nothing we can do for you.
So keep it, you're going to have to keep it down. And his men were so disciplined, he had them so disciplined, that he lost quite a few men who fell off the hill.
Right.
None of them let off the cliff, none of them let out a scream.
Right.
Okay, Alexandre Dumas made it to the top of that, mountain,
Mount Cenis.
Mount Cenis. The Austrians were still facing the other way.
Right.
He came up behind them. When they saw him, they were completely off guard.
It was too late.
It was too late. They surrendered without a fight. He took an impregnable position, and without even having to fire a shot.
Right.
The National Convention in France, when they heard about this, they realized that he was a military genius.
Right. If he was so good and outranked Napoleon, how did Napoleon get to surpass him?
Okay, this came about during the French Revolution. Now in 1793, the rebellion started, and he needed someone to put it down. Now, the first choice that they had was Alexandre Dumas.
Right.
But there were two stories about why he never got there. The first one was that his wife got the message from the messenger, and she didn't want him going into another battle, so she suppressed the information.
Right.
She never gave it to
Right,
him.
she never told him.
The other story is that Alexandre Dumas was so far away from the scene at the time, they figured he never could have gotten there at the time, so they called in Napoleon. Napoleon put down the rebellion, and suddenly he became the number one man.
Oh, okay, okay. Was there any rivalry between him and Napoleon?
Not at first. At first they were bosom buddies. In fact, when Napoleon used to have his conferences with his staff,
Right.
he used to have it in the bedroom. He was still in bed with Josephine, and only
Okay.
a few men a few of the top generals were allowed in there.
Right.
And Dumas was one of them. He was
One
a
of them.
very, very close
Right,
friend
right.
of Napoleon.
Right.
And in fact, Napoleon, he was transferred to Italy under Napoleon, Dumas was, and he won the Battle of Treviso. And eventually Napoleon conquered Italy, of course, with Alexander Dumas' help.
Right.
And Napoleon made him the governor of Italy.
Right.
And they liked him so much that when he was about ready to, well, actually, I shouldn't say the governor of Italy, because Italy was never united at the time. It was just a mass different provinces.
Right. Right.
Napoleon was, Alexander Dumas was made the governor of the city he captured. That was
Right.
Treviso.
Okay.
And they liked him so much that when Napoleon wanted to transfer him out of there, they asked if he could be, if he could stay.
Right.
But Napoleon had, plans for Egypt. He had dreams about conquering Egypt,
When Egypt-
and of course he needed Alexander Dumas for that.
Right. Right.
So what he did was, when Napoleon invaded Egypt, he made sure that Alexander Dumas was in his troop.
Right. Right.
And Alexander Dumas did great for him. He won the Battle of the Pyramids, and he captured the Grand Mosque. Now, I'm going to leave off there. We'll talk about Alexander Dumas later, because his speech was so long that I couldn't do it in one sitting. But I want to get into something else that's very, very important. Now, you know that from what I've been talking about, how good a soldier that he was, and from my experience in Vietnam, I've seen the black troops. They were good men too.
Right. Right.
But yet, they're always getting put down and treated like second-class citizens. Now, you remember the time that I told you about, that time during World War II, when the Americans captured a German unit, and they let the German prisoners sit in the front of the train, and they made the black soldiers who captured them sit in the rear.
Wow.
That's, and yet, no matter what, here's the thing, no matter what the black man did, no matter how he proved himself, he was always
She's like a
put down.
second-class citizen.
And
Treated like a second-class citizen.
treated like a treated lower than a POW, okay, which is worse than a second-class citizen.
Wow.
And I want to get into this, and also I wanted to talk about this happened during the Spanish-American War,
Right.
when Theodore Roosevelt was Rough Riders.
Right.
The black unit, the 10th Cavalry, known as the nickname the Buffalo Soldiers,
Buffalo soldier.
were assigned to take a place called Kettle Hill. Okay. Now there was a white unit led the advance. They got halfway up the hill, and they froze. They were afraid to go any further. The 10th Cavalry grabbed their colors, advanced up the hill, and took the entire hill.
Right.
Then Theodore Roosevelt decided he was going to lead his charge.
Right.
He went charging up there, was swinging his saber.
Right.
By the time he got to the top of the hill, the 10th Cavalry were already breaking for lunch.
Right. They're already captured.
Yeah. Teddy Roosevelt looked at them, they looked at him, and he said, I'll deal with this later on. And what he did was he told the press he had to force those guys at the 10th Cavalry up the hill at pistol point. This is what I'm talking about.
He took all the credit.
Yeah. And so, I want to get these myths cleared up about all this. In fact, there was a story about one of the guys from the Black Panthers. Now, the Black Panthers, I'm not talking about Huey P. Newton and
Right,
Elvis
right,
Cleaver.
right.
I'm talking about the original Black Panthers.
Okay.
They were a World War II tank unit.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, the Germans called themselves the tanks the Panzers. We call ourselves the Panthers, which is, you know, English for Panzer.
Right. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And there was one incident where one of the soldiers from the you know, Black Panther unit saw this wounded white guy, and they were under fire, and he pulled him into a foxhole, saved his life. Now, when they both ended up in the hospital, and the guy, the white guy he saved, he was in a body cast, and the guy from the Black Panthers, he made out a little better, but he was there, and a general came in to you know, make like he was, you know, one of the guys to talk to all the guys and, you know, give them morale. And he's asking all the guys what they're in for. And he walks up to this Black Panther, guy from the Black Panthers, and he says, "What are you in here for, boy? The claps?" And when the white soldier who he had saved heard him, turned around to the general, and he said, "Well, if he did get it, he probably got it from fucking your mother. So go ahead, you son of a bitch, try to send me back to the front lines."
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that was it. That they you know, and the truth is that a lot of these generals were physical cowards themselves.
Yes, they were. Yes,
They
were.
placed themselves so far behind the
Right,
line
right,
that
right.
they you know, they could almost say goodnight to their families when they
Right,
went to sleep.
right, right.
But so I wanted to talk about this thing, you know, and you know, some feedback. I got a theory as to why, you know, why this was happening. Do you have any feedback to say?
Now, I never knew about the Black Panthers in World War II.
Yeah.
I never knew that, and that's very interesting. Like I never knew about Alexandre Dumas. I never knew about
That's-
that. And you brought a lot of history to me.
Well, that's it. See, sometimes I get very impatient with the black people because whenever anybody accused of being stupid, they all get defensive. They say, "No, really, that's stupid." They try to prove that they're not. They knew their own history. If you knew your own history,
They don't know
you
their own
realize
history.
that whatever you're trying to prove,
Right.
there was a black man already, or someone
Right,
who was
exactly,
black who had
exactly.
already proven that.
Exactly.
That's what I'm.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to bring
Exactly.
out.
Right.
Now, the reason I think that all this treatment, no matter what the blacks did, they was put down. I don't think it was so much hatred as fear, and I'll tell you, give you a good example. When I was in the Marines, there was this black guy that was in my unit, and in fact, he reminded me of John Amos. He looked a lot like him.
One on good times.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But he also played Conte Kinte.
Yeah, Coach Kent and Roots. Yeah.
And he was a big guy. He had a very high-pitched voice.
Right.
And they ran this guy through hell. I gotta be honest with you, they ran me through hell, but not like with him. I think if I had undergone what he went through, I think I would have ended up in a mental asylum.
Right.
I mean, give you an example. In the Marine Corps, the way they teach you how to swim, if they say you can't swim, they take you to the deep side of the pool, 10 feet. And they order you to jump in. And if you try to swim to the side, you make it to the edge of the pool, they'll step on your fingers to force you into water to make you swim.
Right.
Well, Lieutenant tried to do it with my friend.
Right.
And my friend didn't want to drown, so he
Right.
pushed Lieutenant back. They got him for assaulting an officer.
Is that right?
And they
Because
sent
he pushed him back.
They sent that because he pushed him back. They sent him to the brig for that. Then when they sent him out of there, they didn't want him back in Tunes. They sent him to what they call the Psychiatric Observance Unit. Psychiatric Observance Unit was originally set up. Now, I gotta caution you that the Marine Corps that I'm talking about now no longer exists. If someone would ask me what the Marine Corps is like today, I couldn't tell you the first thing about it.
Right.
The Marine Corps that I'm talking about is like decades ago,
Right.
the last century, the one that I went through. Now, originally it was set up for people who said they wanted out of the Corps. And so
Psychiatric unit.
what was that?
Psychiatric.
Psychiatric unit. So they sent them, so they sent them, anyone who was in like in a regular platoon and said they want out, they want to quit, they'd send them to this unit. And the unit, the object was to harass them so much that that they had so much was okay. I'll go back to training anything but this.
Right.
But eventually, it just became a dumping grounds for any drill instructor who didn't want a guy in there. They'd send him over there.
Right.
So, actually, as I remember correctly, right, here's what happened. He was let out of the brig, and he didn't go to POU. He went to another platoon, but the drill instructor there didn't want him in the platoon. So he told me, he says, take your stuff from your sea bag, pack it into your foot locker, little chest.
Right.
He did it. The drill instructor came, he flipped it over, and he said, now do it again. And he did this 5 times to this guy, this friend of mine. 5th time, the friend turned around and said, go fuck yourself. And the drill instructor said, that's what I wanted to hear. And then that's what they sent him to the POU. Okay? That's the way they used to do it. Now, the thing that I wanted to bring up was why this hatred. And I say, I don't think it's so much hatred as fear, and I'm going to tell you why. The last platoon that he was in had this sergeant, I know he put a scar on my head one time, but he was like a 6'6" mountain boy from Tennessee. And he called my friend into his hut. The hut was the office that they had.
Right.
They give him a beating for something. Yeah, they did that regularly. Sometimes for whatever reason, sometimes for no reason. I had a drill instructor. He was a division boxing champion one time, and he used to like practicing his solar plexus puncher. So he used to bring people into his recruits into his office for the slightest fracture,
just beat on,
just to practice his punches.
Right. Right.
Anyway, so this guy, the drill instructor, had my friend in there, and he was punching, and then my friend went to scratch his head. Drill instructor all of a sudden flinched back like that. He thought my friend was going to hit him. Yeah.
Right.
And this is what I'm thinking. These right after slavery, the Civil War.
Right.
When all the blacks were freed, these Southerners are thinking about all the things that they did to them, the plantation.
Right.
God damn! Now these guys are free to. Now these guys are free to kill us.
A lot of resentment.
And they wanted to. They said, unless we keep them scared, that's what they're going to do.
Right. Exactly.
And originally, what the Ku Klux Klan used to do, the reason they had the sheets and all that, because they thought that blacks were superstitious. They were afraid of ghosts.
Right.
So they dressed up like ghosts.
Right.
And then they had this little skit they did. They had this, container like an enema bag.
Right.
They put in their vest. They put a tube through it, up their chin, and they said, "Look what we can do." They take this big gallon of water. They chug it like it. See how we have magical powers. Meanwhile, filled with the enemy bag.
Right.
But they also had like a Colt 45 strapped to their belt.
Exactly.
Says, don't try to start anything with us.
Right.
Because they wanted everyone to think that they're magical ghosts.
Right.
And they wanted to keep them scared.
Keep them scared, yeah.
And so that's why I think personally that the reason that there was so much persecution of the blacks was not so much because they hated him, but because they were that scared of him. And I use that
they became inferior.
I use that drill instructor example as an example.
Right.
It's about myself.
Right.
Okay. Now, what's your feedback on what I just said?
I think that you're absolutely right, because going all the way back in time, the white man became so afraid of the black man that they wanted to inflict so much pain upon him to have them scared of him. So as long as he had him scared of him, he had the upper hand.
Right.
He had the upper hand.
That's what I think.
So, and that's why that they didn't want to educate the black man, is because they were afraid of him. They were afraid of him, physically and mentally. So that's what they did. They I mean, going all the way back in time, you know what I mean? Or they deprived the black man of education. They deprived the black man of what was going on in the world. They didn't want the black man to read. They didn't want him to write. They just wanted to keep him down. And as time went on, it changed. People changed.
Yeah. Now, this is backed up because by historical incidents. For instance, in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was a black community that had a lot of professional people, lawyers and all that, and a lot of people were getting into Congress.
Right.
Now, the white population around the surrounding area started getting scared that they were going to take over the country.
Right.
So they led a raid, led by an ex-Confederate captain or something, on this town. They caught these citizens completely off guard. They weren't, they weren't fighters. They were all professionals, doctors, lawyers.
Right. Like the Black Wall Street.
Yeah, and they burned their houses, and drove them out into the swamps without any protection.
Right.
See, now Booker T. Washington, he was his idea was to teach the black man practical things, like how to build, and so that eventually the white man become dependent on him for all the building.
Right.
I've seen this work in Israel. The Israelis, the original Israelis, they were the pioneers. They built that country from the ground up.
Right.
The people inherited from them. They were sort of like the attitude that we had back in the 1950s. They wanted all their children to be professionals, not to dirty their hands. So they left the building to the Arabs, and the Arabs used it to their advantage. I lived in Israel for a while. In the town that I lived in, they were building a tennis court.
Oh, you did live in Israel?
I did lived in Israel for almost 2 years.
Okay.
And it took them 2 years to build a tennis court. Meanwhile, they have all these buildings going up around them that were housing Arabs.
Okay.
And I say the Israelis were stupid enough to put an important thing like building in the hands of the Arabs, and they deserved what they got.
The Palestinians.
Yeah, they weren't Palestinians. These were Arabs who were living in Israel. They were Israelis.
Okay.
Now, see, the Arabs in Israel, they could actually even sit in the Knesset, which is like our Congress.
Okay.
So they had the same voting rights as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it went. They built, they built for themselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
And which I understand.
Right.
And but the problem is that as they brought up with Wilmington, North Carolina, the whites wouldn't even give them a chance to develop. So that's where Booker T. Washington, I don't think he figured on the whites being so vicious about it and not giving them a chance at all to build. So that's where the whole thing fell short.
Right.
Booker T. Washington, he had a good idea, but he didn't have all the facts. He didn't see the whole picture.
Right. Okay.
What's your feedback?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about that. I did some studying up on that myself, and I came to the same conclusion. That's what Booker T. Washington did. He wanted them to build their own. You know what I mean? So the white man can become dependent upon them, and not vice versa.
Right.
So and eventually that's what happened. That's what happened. Blacks started building their own. And like you was talking about the Black Wall Street, 1921.
Yeah.
When they burnt them out.
Yeah.
Doctors, lawyers, then they came up with a thing like, they said that.
I'm not that familiar with Black Wall Street. You're up on a little more up on history than I am.
Okay.
Tell me about Black Wall Street.
The Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921.
Okay.
They called it the Black Wall Street because you had doctors, you had lawyers, you had senators, all these congressional, intelligent, smart black people, teachers, and everything. And what they did was, a lot of black people migrated there,
Yeah.
so they could become educated.
Right.
And what they did was, they didn't turn down no black people. They educated, brought them in. And what the white people did in Tulsa, they became inferior of that. And they said, we got to do something about this. So they made up a story that this young black kid, like Emmett Till,
Yeah.
said he whistled at a white woman. And in turn, she said that that's what he did. So they said that they're getting too above themselves now. We got to do something about it. So what they did is, they locked the kid up. So some black soldiers who was in the army,
Yeah.
it was like 12 of them,
Yeah.
went to the jail to protect him,
Yeah.
make sure he got a fair trial.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't let nobody do anything to him.
Right.
So this went on for like 2 months. But during all that time, the white people were congregating and getting their heads together to run him out of town. And what they did was they dropped bombs on the schools, the churches, the law offices,
Even the churches.
everything. And they ran in and they destroyed everything. Took everything from them, the money, everything, and pushed them out in the street. And nothing was done about it. Nothing was done about it.
I want to cut it short now because I want to continue later on my next podcast about Alexandre Dumas and about the what we were talking about,
Right.
and talk on the go in the possibility, supposing that the white man does think all these things about the black man that aren't true. Would it not be to the black man's advantage to let the white man think all this stuff?
Right.
Because when you underestimate your opponent, it gives your opponent the edge over you.
The upper hand.
Remember what I was telling you about that movie that I saw? Bobby Dowd, I can't remember the name of it, but he plays an American Nazi during World War II era.
Right.
And one of the lines was, "Yeah, keep laughing at us. That way you won't see us coming."
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Okay.
And I want also, since I've been doing so much yakking, I wanted you to talk a little about the Emmett Till case.
Okay. Right.
And we'll
right.
cover that next time.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Till then, don't forget, I'm also a singer, so don't forget to check my website out for
And
various songs that I do.
And a very good singer.
Right. Now that we've had a serious time, let's have a good one.
God bless.